Today, the name of our devotion is called No Pressure.
No pressure.
And you've heard that phrase, right? There's no pressure.
Yeah, and no pressure in my tires. And I got to go find some.
Oh, that's something. You know what? One time I had no pressure in my tire. Well, I saw on my, what do you call it?
Dash.
My dash, the information on my dash.
It was a digital readout on her tires.
Said your tires are low. They have to talk plain to me, all right? So the tires were low, so I knew I had to go to a gas station, and I had never put pressure in the tire. I'd never put air in the tire before. He has done amazing all my life. He's spoiling me with that. And so he was in Illinois, and I was at home, so I was thinking, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to grow up here.
Yeah, but she was letting it out.
No, but what happened?
Putting it in, she let it out.
What happened is I put the gauge in, you know, and I didn't have my reading glasses on. I couldn't see, you know, like how much I needed to put in. And I really, truthfully, didn't know how to operate it, if you want to know the truth about it. And so anyway, I ended up letting the rest of the air out of the tires, like, okay, this ain't working. And then, you know, somebody came along and helped me out.
I called our son-in-law.
Well, no, that was another time.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, that was another time. I had some nice man that come and helped me and taught me a bit more about it. But anyway, that was a side one. But you've heard the phrase "no pressure's on," or you've heard the phrase "the pressure's on" too.
I want to hear about this nice man that helped you.
He was very nice.
We'll talk about that a little later.
He was a family. You know, he was nice though. He had a wife and kids, and he knew what it's like to have his woman that had a need.
So if you ain't helping yourself.
Let's change the subject. It's all good.
So here's the thing: is if you've heard the phrase "pressure on," and some of the typical things is like, all right, it's tied up. There's 2 outs, 2 on base.
How about 3 on base?
Well, it doesn't matter. However many you want.
Well, it's better.
All
There's
right,
3 on base.
3 on base.
2 outs.
2 outs, and you're up to bat. No pressure, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you feel that pressure. I remember I was working at Dairy Queen when I was in high school, and the boss he scheduled us, and he scheduled a very small staff that night, which would have been fine normally, but it turned out that there was a game at the high school that night. And so all these kids came pouring in after the game, and I'm the only cook in the back.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, I was no pressure. I was flipping burgers and hot dogs, and everything else was going on. And so anyway, we made it through, but you feel the pressure of trying to get that out.
So pressure is the use of persuasion, influence, or intimidation, or to get someone to do something. And so you feel that pressure. But if we flip...
For example, wait a minute, let's talk about intimidation. So what about, did you ever do something, and then one of your friends wanted you to do something for them, and you said, no, I'm not doing that, and they said, if you don't, I'm going to tell about the time and you fill in the blank.
That's blackmail.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that happens all the time, and not just in school, but I mean in real life, people are pressured into things and they end up making bad choices, and it's not good to live a life that's filled with pressure.
Well, here's another pressure that I've been experiencing for since the last couple weeks of June. And so I'm feeling it right now. I'm just, feeling those sweats and those hot flashes. I mean, I'm 53 years old. No, I'm 54. Not. I'm 54.
You're going to be 55.
But anyway, so look, I had this nice little fan.
September 6th, 55.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I'm not ashamed of it. Let me tell you, I've lived every one of these years. But I remember when I was on Julie and Friends, somebody gave us these fans, all of us girls these fans, and I thought, well, that is cute. That's really sweet. That's really cute. Well, today I found it. And it's like, I know what that's about. But what happens is that heat rises, and it's like pressure. You feel the pressure of that heat, and then it releases. But
I just like sitting next to her when she feels the pressure. that makes me feel pretty good right now.
But I found out today that if you flip did you know if you flip the word, like the pressure's
on?
No, like
you flip the word on.
No, but I'm saying first if it's no pressure, but if you flip the word no. It's on.
No.
Isn't it?
You were saying the pressure's on. We were talking about the pressure's on. That's
Yeah.
why I wrote that out for you. So the pressure's on. The pressure's on, but if you flip the word on.
Oh, that's right. That's how I did it. That's right.
Then you get no. And if you flip the phrase, then instead of the pressure's on, you've got no pressure.
That's true.
Okay.
See, I need
No
you.
pressure.
I need
No
you in my life.
pressure.
Okay, look, you see that sweating? That's pitiful. Okay.
Here, I'll hold this.
Wait,
You
ladies,
can.
send a heart up. Send a heart up if you know what I'm talking about right now. If you know what I'm talking about, I want you to send a heart up. Especially at night when you wake up. No, at night. No, that's morning.
Let's go ahead.
Okay,
and
so
okay.
Psalms 119 and 143 says, "As pressure and stress bear down on me, I find joy in your commands."
Wow,
And
that's powerful, isn't it?
It is. So
this is what God's saying, is you don't have to live a life filled with pressure.
Hearts.
When you,
Thank you,
a lot
girls.
of hot ladies
My
out there
support
right
group.
now.
Woo! Go ahead.
So what happens is when those hearts are still going up, we're going to pray a cold front for y'all.
Woo! Okay.
So here's what happens is God is trying to let us know that when you feel pressure in life,
Yes.
that there's a release valve in him. And so the
Love
psalmist writes and says that as pressure and stress bear down on me, I find joy in your commands. In other words, when I look to you, it's a release valve for me, and I'm able to experience
Wow.
joy instead of all that pressure.
What about an airplane?
Well, if you've ever flown before, and I think about this because if you've flown on a jet, you're doing over 500 miles an hour at 10 miles straight up in the air. And so when, I want you to fathom this, so you're 10 miles straight up in the air, first thing is you ought to be freezing that high up.
Yeah.
The second thing is you're doing over 500 miles an hour, so your eyebrows ought to be on the back of your head. I mean, it just, you know.
Right. Or your jaw,
and-
you know, like if you ever looked out the window, or like driving down the road and you put your head out the window.
No, I've never done that.
And you open your mouth. When you were kids, you know, you
I've
open
seen
your
my
mouth,
dog do that.
and it just blows it. Yeah.
No,
I'm sorry, I just had a visual.
And so, anyway, let me get back to
Okay.
So you think, how am I able to sustain that type of pressure?
Yeah.
It's because you're in a pressurized cabin. In other words, before you started that journey, the people that were responsible for your travel created an environment that would protect you from the outside pressure
that's
by
good.
creating pressure on the inside for you. Now, this is a great time for us to transition here to the pressure cooker.
Oh, yeah.
So
Look, wait, this was given to us. It's amazing. It does several different things.
This is not just a pressure cooker, it's also a
Yeah.
crock pot.
Yeah.
It's a deep fryer. You can set your hair in. No, I'm kidding. I don't know about that. But anyway, this is, if you've ever seen a pressure cooker, now this is modern, but the old pressure cookers had those rattlers on top. And it would, as the pressure began to build, you'd hear it, and you knew what was going on. And man, you could smell the food, and you thought, man, that is so wonderful. But here's what was amazing about a pressure cooker. A pressure cooker, you could put in a frozen chunk of meat, and that pressure cooker is able to deal with that frozen meat and not just thaw it out, but cook it. And at the same time, you can have potatoes and carrots in there, and it will cook the potatoes and carrots but not destroy them.
Right.
God has a way of creating an environment for us that can deal with a cold heart and put the pressure on that cold heart and warm it up and melt it in His presence. And at the same time, He has the ability that if we've been through some things that have caused us to feel very fragile, and
Yes.
we've lost a loved one, or we've lost a job, or we've had a bout with our health and we feel fragile, and He's able to create an environment where He's able to surround us, keep the outside pressure off, and create a hug for us on the
I love
inside.
that.
And so we feel the pressure of His hug, but it's not pressure, it's pleasure.
Right.
And so God is able to turn our pressure into pleasure when we turn our hearts to Him.
You know, speaking, you just kind of opened the door for that. So today I received a phone call, and you're not aware of this, but a lady that we talked about on the broadcast that says take your time, and we talked about an individual called Elizabeth Gates that has given thousands of stuffed animals that we've taken to different countries. Well, she passed away today.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she passed away today. But I called her a couple days earlier, just felt impressed, and it was actually the last day she was coherent and was ready to meet the Lord. She had broken her hip and was going through a lot of pain. But the phone call, we've established a relationship over several years, and they asked me to officiate the funeral, for me to speak at the funeral. I know. And I said, oh yes, you mean Rick? Yeah, Rick will just do anything. Yeah, he'll preach the funeral. They said, no, we're talking about you. And it's because, and I don't know if we're going to do it together or what, but it's because I've had a lot of conversations with her and spent quality time on the phone, and but I started feeling like, because they said, you've never spoken at a funeral. No, I've sung at many funerals, but I've never spoke at a funeral. Right. So,
oh, you'll do great.
But anyway, what an honor it is.
Absolutely.
But I started to feel that, like,
how old was she?
She's 94.
Wow.
But anyway, I was just thinking about Proverbs.
She was such a gift.
Yes,
there
absolutely.
were so many. So I think about all the children that will surround her.
Yes.
In heaven.
That's right.
And thank her for the gifts that she gave.
Because she had no toys growing up, and that was her passion.
And I'm telling you, I watched smiles on hundreds of children's faces.
So Proverbs 24:10 says, if you fail under pressure, your strength is too small. And so where do we get our strength? Lies in the Lord. He said he would bless his people he would give strength to his people, and he would bless them with peace. And so
and we have to take it to him, right?
Exactly.
And so yesterday, when after the service we had a powerful service yesterday morning at church, and then when I came home, I opened up our Facebook page, and I had a message, and the message was from a man that had watched the meeting, and he said, could you pray with me? He said he was saying he wanted to give his heart to the Lord.
Wow.
And so we were able, through Facebook, to send him a prayer of salvation so he could come to the Lord. And I thought, man, what an honor and what a privilege it is to be able to have a medium where we can communicate. And it doesn't, you may be, man, in another country right now, but all it takes is you surrendering your heart and letting go of that pressure and giving it to God. And in that moment, he changes things.
Worries of tomorrow cause pressure. We all know that, right? We live in the boundaries. We've got to live in the boundaries of today. And just like God gave us 24 hours a day, we're to live in that 24 hours. And we get to start all over the next morning. But most of the things that entangle our mind are concerns for tomorrow. And when the Lord, he said, give us this day. He taught us how to pray. Give us this day our daily bread.
Amen.
He doesn't want us to be pressured about tomorrow. So we don't try to jump over the fence of yesterday or tomorrow. What about, people can put pressure on you, or you can put pressure on yourself.
Right. If there's one thing about doing something with excellence, and there's another when you're a perfectionist. Because when you're a perfectionist, you put so much pressure on yourself that it's never good enough. And, as long as you do it to the best of your ability, then you've done it with excellence.
Right.
But don't spend your life reliving every mistake and reliving every hurt and every pain and everything you felt like you didn't get right. You just do the best you can.
Right.
And that's what God's asking.
So there's also can be manipulation in that, or if someone's putting pressure on you, and peer pressure.
Right.
Or like I was saying earlier, you can put pressure on yourself.
Yeah,
so we talked today about when you were a kid.
Now let's talk about when you were a kid.
I've got plenty.
He's always wanting me to tell these stories on myself.
Well, you know what?
Let me tell
No, the truth is he's got such an incredible memory. He remembers stories where I have forgotten.
Maybe I need to start forgetting some of this
Now,
stuff.
unless God brings it to my attention or to my memory, I've forgotten so much.
We were talking today about how that when you're surrounded with friends or just peers,
Yeah.
you know, that you can end up doing stuff that you would never do on your own. And
this is not just kids either, it's
no,
as adults.
Yeah, exactly, as adults. Yeah, you end up, man, there have been adults that have gotten themselves in a mess of trouble because they allowed peer pressure to cause them to compromise their stance, and then all of the bricks fell on them. You understand what I'm talking about? You ever hear of a fair weather friend, you know, just take off? Anyway, when I was a kid, we were out, and, you know, me and my buddy, and I would have never done this if it had just been me. But because there was someone else there with me, and we were kind of, you know, agging it on, and so there was a house across the road, you know, and there were several steps that went up, and he had bushes, and it was hot outside, and the guy had his door propped wide open. You know how kids are, and all of a sudden, talk started happening, and we said, man, I wonder if we could get a smoke bomb in that house. You remember those little smoke bombs? You can still buy them today. They're different colors, and you light them and throw them. Well, somebody got the great idea about trying to shoot a smoke bomb across there, and I got volunteered for it. And so I had I don't know if you're familiar with a wrist rocket, but we were a good ways off from it. And so, look, I was 10 years old, so don't hold this against me. I've repented over this. So he lit the smoke bomb, and I shot, and man, and it went right in that door. Now, if you've ever thrown a smoke bomb before, you know that once it lights, it starts leaving a trail of smoke. So it left a trail of smoke right back to where it came from. And that man came out of the house with a big flashlight. I'm telling you, we never hugged dirt so hard and so long, praying to God, Lord, please don't let. And we shouldn't have never done it to begin with. But I thought, if my dad finds out, I'm not going to live to be 11. I just need God, please, please. And so it was, the pressure was on. And I thought to myself, why did I do that? Why did I do that? So if you've ever been there, put a thumbs up right now. And I better see some thumbs going up. Okay.
Well, we were talking today about my brother. He was adopted. My parents, we told you before, were missionaries to the Navajo Indians in New Mexico. And so they adopted him at 8 days old.
There go the thumbs.
Yeah. So he grew up, there was no partiality in our family. He was the second to the oldest, but he was struggling with peer pressure. And
well, he got into trouble because some friends of his had stolen property and asked him to hold it. And he held it for them. And then when the police found it, it was in his possession. So he ended up taking the rap for them.
Right.
And they were nowhere around.
Yeah, that's right.
They let him take the rap. And so, people that say that they're your friends sometimes are just using you. So you don't need to get in a place where you feel that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And you should never get yourself in a place where you've compromised yourself to the point that now you're going to pay a price for what someone else did.
Right, and he ended up going to prison over it. And then after that, he ended up, someone smuggled put stuff in his apartment that he was clean of, but he had to testify. He was straightening out his life, but he was
due to testify, and he ended up dead.
He was murdered pushed from his 3-story apartment, but he struggled with peer pressure to be accepted. And so, but God rescued him though at the end of his life, and so there's certainly hope. And
yeah, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through, if you'll just turn it over to Him, he can relieve that pressure. He can take it off.
Well, we talked today about the countries, different. You have faced so much, I mean, truthfully, pressure over the years in going into different countries on the borders, trying to get in and leading a big group and, smuggling Bibles and material. Well, I mean, that's the only way you could get it in.
I think about when you find yourself in a place with pressure, you can't let the pressure get to you.
That's right.
Otherwise, you'll never accomplish what you're trying to accomplish for God. Anybody that thinks that living for God is just, a journey on a cloud floating around and enjoying everything. Look, there's challenges, but He builds us for the challenge. He creates that environment for us that we may be in. There may be pressure on, but we're in His hands, and so He's keeping us safe and not allowing us to bear more than we're able to, or to take on more than we're able to bear. So there were, times in Haiti when we shipped a truck over, and it was after the earthquake, and it was filled with supplies. It was a 32-foot box truck, and it was full to the top with supplies. And so we drove it to West Palm, Florida, West Palm Beach, Florida. Got it on a truck. They told us when it would arrive. We flew over to Haiti to meet it, and then went into customs. And all this stuff was to give to their people. It was just free. It was for the people to be given. And I went into customs, and they I had a native pastor with me, and he went over and we looked at the truck. I opened it up and let him see everything that was in it. Then he said, okay, it's going to cost you $6,000 to get it out of customs. And the native pastor that was there, man, his eyes got big. He got all nervous and all that. And I looked at the guy and I just started laughing. I started laughing at him. I said, okay. And I just turned around and walked off. And the native pastor came to me and he said, what are you doing? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I said, well, we're not about to let him know that we want that real bad. I said, let's let it sit here for a couple weeks, and then we'll find out if he's ready to talk. So that's what we did, and ended up that they released it. I don't remember. I think I paid $1,500. Was it $1,500 or $2,000 to get it out, which was a lot less than they had asked at the beginning. But you can't allow pressure to build up like that. There were times that, in Mexico when we were taking supplies in, and then people were always trying to put pressure on us, that, well, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to pay us. And there's so much bribes, that patrol guards wanted or border agents wanted. And it was you just had to learn how to take it a step at a time and ask God to give you the grace to do it.
So John 16:33, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Well, tribulation there means pressure. He's saying you're going to have it. You're going to experience it. We're not going to live life and not experience that, but he's saying, look, you be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I like what you said about Jeremiah.
Jeremiah is feeling pressure because of the way that people were treating him for preaching the Word of God. So now he's feeling this pressure not to preach, that he can't preach, because, man, they're throwing him in a pit. They're threatening his life. And so he just decided he was about to capitulate to that pressure, and he said, I'm not preaching anymore. But then he felt this overwhelming presence of God come on him. And he said it was like a fire shut up in his bones. So the pressure that he was feeling from without is overwhelmed by the pleasure and the joy that he's feeling from within. And so he doesn't care what they're saying anymore. He doesn't care what they're going to do. He's going to share the Word of God, and he's going to do what God's told him to do.
Well, the reason this devotion came about is this morning I got a text from an individual, and she's really building relationship with God, and she felt pressure of understanding what her gifts were, and she wanted so much to do for God, and she's like, but I feel like you know, I don't know what that is. I don't know what my gifts and my talents are. And so my response was, look, there's no pressure. You know, you just keep walking close to him, and you'll walk right into it. And I like what you said today. The greatest gift is your ability.
Debbie and I were talking about this, and I was saying, I said, look, I said, if people have to understand this, that the greatest gift we have is our ability to share the gospel with others.
That's right.
I said, a lot of times, you know, we're walking around trying to find, well, what's my gift? What can I do? It's just to share the gospel.
Right.
Not to have pressure on you and feel like, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, but it's the opportunity to be able to share what God has done in your life and see how it transforms other lives.
So no pressure means don't worry. There's no rush. Or don't worry about making a mistake. It's often said when someone is facing a difficult and important task that they need to get it right. And so you say, look, there's no pressure. Or if you need someone to do something, but you don't want them to feel like they have to do it immediately, what do? What do you say? Or you don't want them to feel burdened by it, you say there's no pressure. You don't want them to feel that pressure on them. And so Exodus 14:14, the Lord... Moses told the people, he said, the Lord himself will fight for you. You just stay calm. In the King James Version, it says, you hold your peace. That's when you want to say it so bad, you're going to bust a gut if you don't say it. That's when you don't say it. He's saying, hold your peace. Calm. Psalms 94:19 says, in the multitude of my anxieties within me, your comforts delight my soul. So I know we're running out of time.
Let's just go. Let's go here. So a lot of times we think about, well, how do we deal with pressure? And that, you know, God doesn't, sometimes we even think, well, God doesn't know what I'm going through. You know, God doesn't feel pressure. Oh. But let me walk you back. Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he knows that he's getting ready to face Calvary. And while he's in there, he starts praying, and the Bible said that he prayed until the sweat came as great drops of blood. Do you know that what happened there was, I mean, that was a physical thing that happened to him? They say you can be experiencing so much stress and anxiety that it causes the capillaries in your blood system to rupture and burst, and you will secrete blood through the sweat glands of your body. So how did he deal with it? He said, Lord, if there's any way, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want to have to do this. But then all of a sudden, what God does is God relieved the pressure. He said, not my will, but thy will be done. And if you follow in the Gospel of Luke, 22nd chapter, and I believe the 43rd verse, it says, and God sent an angel and strengthened him. Wow. Do you understand? He's feeling all that pressure, and he's getting ready to enter into this, and they're just a few minutes away. They're coming soon, and God relieves the pressure. And when God relieved that pressure, when all those soldiers showed up, he stood up, not fearful, not with no pressure. He stood up and he said, who are you looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am he, and laid them all flat on the ground. I'm telling you, he was in full control, and he didn't feel pressure anymore because he was overwhelmed with the presence of God. When he's crucified on the cross, it's not pressure he's feeling, it's the overwhelming presence and compassion of God when he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that took God? Because if it had been just his flesh up there doing that, it had been, God, make them pay for what they've done. But he's not doing that. He's forgiving them. He's asking forgiveness for them. And I'm telling you that when we allow God to take the pressure off of us and we release ourselves into his hand, we can experience that as well. So tonight, we want to pray for you that you don't experience pressure, but you experience the overwhelming presence of God.
Or when you do, you go to him, you release it. Let that release valve.
Amen. The release valve. Let the pressure off and pour his presence in. Father, we thank you for your goodness tonight, and just ask you to have your way. Lord, speak to every heart and every individual that's listening tonight, God, or that will listen in the future. And I'm just asking right now that they'll sense your overwhelming presence, releasing the pressure off of the situation. No more worry. No more anger. No more stress. But God, just your abiding presence. Let them experience that joy that's unspeakable and full of glory, and a peace that passes all understanding.
Amen.
We thank you for it in Jesus' name.
Can I say this quote? It's just so good, I don't want to not say it.
Is it from Winnie the Pooh?
No. I don't know why it won't make it big, but it says, when we long for life without difficulties, remind us that oaks grow strong in contrary winds, and diamonds are made under pressure. This is
good stuff.
Peter Marshall.
You know,
Diamonds are made under
remember that
pressure.
song? Just an old lump of coal, but I'm going to be a diamond someday. God's put you as his jewels in his crown. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
We love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.